Guild Wars 2. This is my first time trying this MMORPG out. Now, I'm not new to the MMO genre. I have over 2,000 hours in Final Fantasy XIV, and I've dabbled in World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, and even RuneScape. But Guild Wars 2, this game is not what I was expecting. Critics agree, Guild Wars 2 is a video game. But in all seriousness, Guild Wars 2 is actually a very fun and interesting time. Now, if you try to compare Guild Wars 2 to other MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, I can tell you right now, it brings something else to the table. And would you believe me if I said it's probably one of the easiest MMOs to hop into? Guild Wars 2 does its own thing, where it sees a fork in the road, one leads to gameplay, the other to story, and walks right in between them. It definitely has a gameplay focus, but also gives you your own personal story mode to work with, both of which begin at the character creator. So, let's dive right in. First things first, character creation. You get to choose between 5 different races to play as. I'm not a Guild Wars historian, but from what I've heard, that's 4 more races than Guild Wars 1. These races are pretty varied in their overall designs, and they each have their own starting zones. You have the warmongering cat-like chars that will knock you off a ledge much easier than your normal house cat. The icy Norse-themed Norns went far with that name, didn't they? The small and likely puntable Azura race. They're also smart. The plant-like Sylvari race that makes you wonder if they're your leftover salad in the fridge that you left there 2 months ago. And last but not least, the absolute basic bitch human race to top off the 5 of them. So naturally, as all MMOs go, we make our character a massively hulking, absolute Giga Chad. That's right. I totally went basic bitch human. Couldn't get my first attempt at a name, so we go with the second choice. Vladathar, the human warrior, because bonk. Interestingly enough, something that definitely helps with the personal story mode is actually giving your character a backstory via multiple choice answers. And I won't lie, the choices you make here will actually determine some aspects of your personal story in the future. It's a really nice touch that I wasn't expecting, as it really helps with both immersion as well as your own role-playing in this new and exciting world. When I began the game, it immediately started off with a unique art style picture show. It looks really good and tells the history of my character with the backstory I selected. After that, I was thrust out into a battlefield with rain, enemies, and drab scenery. I was very surprised to see that my character actually has a voice.
I'll go. Captain Thackeray's never failed Divinity's Reach.
It's actually a nice change of pace from the silent protagonist. The gameplay is similar to Tab Target, but also feels more free-form action at the same time. It's a really good way of taking combat and not only making it engaging, but also understandable. Don't get me wrong, it has its chaotic moments of course, but once you understand how the game works, things become easier to see and what you should be looking for. And as you look to your left, you can see the game was clearly trying to make the humans catch these hands. Now that I'm out of the very explodey intro, I don't have access to any more personal story quests until I reach level 10. In fact, you get a few quests in that every 10 levels. So then the question, how does one level up to continue this story? Simple answer, questing and exploring. Guild Wars 2's quest system actually subverts the typical MMO fetch quest that the genre is known for. Typically in MMOs, if you go around questing, a lot of the quests you come across will be fetch quests in some capacity. Guild Wars 2 works around this by making all of their side quests you find in the world to be in close proximity to the quest giver. You never have to go very far to complete the quests in general. Another aspect that helps with this quest system is the game giving you multiple ways to complete the tasks. You can kill certain enemies in the area, destroy certain objects, collect certain objects, etc., all within the same area. Once done, you get your reward and experience points. Exploring also nets you experience. This game really wants you to feel like an adventurer, and I'm all for it. Now, I know all of the starting zones are different for each race, but there's nothing quite like the human starting zone really giving you that classic new adventurer in a new world feeling, like seeing all of the lush greenery around when you start. Alright, get to level 10, bada bing, bada boom. More personal quest line. Rinse and repeat every 10 levels. The story, with having a backstory and added role-playing, also gives me choices to make as well. Decisions that will help shape the way my story goes. It really helps with the role-playing and makes it more personal. Kind of like a, say, personal quest? For my backstory, one of the parts to it that I selected was about a centaur attack killing my sister, but no body was found. Later on in the personal questline, we find out that she's alive and a goal to save her starts up. Having something like this affect my personal story is fantastic in helping it feel like I was really role-playing and immersed in what was happening via my choices. Seeing how far they went in writing these personal quests with quite a few different branching paths is both very encouraging to continue, but shows a certain level of dedication and confidence the writing team had in making their stories as varied as they are. Whether this aspect continues in the expansions or gets a lot more linear, regardless of which race you are in your backstory, is something I'll need to experience later. Needless to say, I'm impressed. As for how big the map is, it's gigantic. So all of the scenery you find won't overstay its welcome and helps to keep the fantasy feeling going. Like seriously, I have yet to be everywhere on the map in all of the time I have been playing. From all the different types of biomes you can traverse through, as well as the major cities, which, by the way, have gorgeous architecture and scenery. Once I got to Lion's Arch, I also found out that every race has a race-specific friend that's part of your journey, but they already know each other. There's also little things like this that make the world feel more lived in. As I was questing, I also happened to find the world's laziest cat. Come on, it's right there! I also happened to come across an event where it ended up opening a rift for players to go through and fight a boss. It also happened to be level 80, so I noped myself way out of there. General questing aside, I also had to take a quick look into PvP. Now, I'm more of a PvE kind of guy, but I will say that fighting other players definitely had its fun moments. It probably also helped being on the winning side too. Another part of this is that everyone is automatically put up to level 80, the max level. This makes it so everyone is on the same playing field, so you won't have players that are just absurdly overpowered to the new players. This definitely helps in getting newer players to join easier, as they won't have the big block that is the entire MMO story to work through to level up. But to go even further is a mode called World vs. World. This is a massive map where players go in and try to capture points to take ownership of the zone. Fighting other players as well as roaming NPC enemies brings this into a more unique area of PvEVP. It has a grand scope, but unfortunately my time there must have been during a downtime because it wasn't all that populated. Another part of group play involved my foray into dungeons. Dungeons being a main staple to an MMO, I had a fair bit of expectations going in. It didn't ask for the traditional healer, DPS, or tank roles, just a group of 5 people going in and fighting baddies. The chaos of it was quite fun. The bosses have mechanics, and the rewards seem plentiful, exactly as a dungeon should be. One takeaway from this was going in for the first time, I wasn't expecting full-on cutscenes and a big story explaining each dungeon. So when you would go in, it was pretty much a 50-50 chance your team would wait for you to watch them, or just run off and take on the dungeon while you're standing there. That aside, Guild Wars 2 even has an incredible musical score made by the insanely talented Jeremy Soule, the very same person who made the score for Skyrim. And dear God, this music! Hear that? That's not your grandma having problems with the blender. That's the sound of incredible music. From what I've heard, music has a lot of ambience as well as epic fighting music. Stuff that really gets you into a nice, calm, questing mood, or even gets your blood pumping for some fast-paced combat. When you put all of these things together, it sure does make a traditional MMO, but with a Guild Wars spin on it. From the combat mix of tab target and action giving you more freedom in fights, to that of the personal questline being very thought out with interesting story bits. I'm very intrigued to continue, and now that I know that dragons play a huge role in the overarching story, it's like the peanut butter to my jelly. As a new player in this world, I'm looking forward to, and I'm dead. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in this world, and definitely want to continue and see how the expansions are done as well. Saying I'm hooked is probably pretty accurate to how I'm feeling right now. So, in the end, it's onward and upward.